Brandon becomes what the philosopher Søren Kierkegaard might have called an object of despair. Kierkegaard argued that the deepest form of despair arises when the self cannot successfully relate to itself. The narrator repeatedly attempts to understand who he is through Brandon's existence, measuring his masculinity, worth, desirability, and social legitimacy against another person. He becomes alienated from himself, precisely because he seeks self-knowledge through comparison. This recalls Kierkegaard's observation: the most common form of despair is not being who you are. The tragedy of the narrator is that he increasingly experiences himself through Brandon's gaze. The bathroom incident is therefore psychologically devastating, not because of the accusation itself, but because Brandon successfully imposes an identity upon him before he has constructed one for himself. Meanwhile, Brandon appears closer to what Friedrich Nietzsche described as reactive power. Nietzsche argued that wounded individuals frequently transform suffering into domination. Rather than confronting vulnerability directly, they seek power through the humiliation of others. Brandon's aggression, cruelty, and performative masculinity can be interpreted as compensatory behaviors masking profound insecurity and trauma. Nietzsche wrote, "Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster." What makes Brandon fascinating is that the novel never allows readers to determine where victimhood ends and monstrosity begins. The narrator's fixation can also be examined through the lens of Jacques Lacan. Lacan's famous claim that desire is the desire of the other is particularly relevant here. The narrator does not merely desire Brandon. He desires what Brandon appears to possess: social acceptance, masculine legitimacy, confidence, recognition. Brandon functions as a symbolic ideal rather than a flesh and blood person. Consequently, every attempt to understand Brandon becomes an attempt to resolve deficiencies within the self. This dynamic resembles what René Girard called mimetic desire. Girard argued that human beings often desire things because they see others desiring or possessing them. The object itself becomes secondary. Brandon is simultaneously rival, model, enemy, and aspiration. The narrator's obsession persists because Brandon occupies all these positions at once. The novel's treatment of gender becomes especially nuanced when viewed through the work of Judith Butler. Butler famously argued that gender is not simply something one is, but something one performs under social scrutiny. Throughout the novel, the narrator is repeatedly punished for failing to embody dominant masculine norms.